My name is Heather Eidson, and I'm the multimedia producer in University Marketing and Communication at Loyola University Chicago. What comes to mind when I think of the term mobile photography or phonography is really the proliferation of imagery and photography for pretty much any available use for anybody in our society. Over the last decade, we've just witnessed an explosion of imagery and screen-based technology, and I think all of that imagery means that there has been somewhat of a heightened awareness of photography and of the image, but also a need for more education on what makes a good photograph. I think what's really interesting, especially as my background as a professional photojournalist over the course of several years, was seeing how photography really it transitioned from a place where only professionals could take good photos and maybe the seasoned consumer to really anyone. Pretty much anyone now can and has the ability to take a good photograph. You know, I look at a camera as a tool for taking an image, and so I really do consider the camera as a valid form of photography. And I'm somebody that also uses top-of-the-line equipment to make photographs. I've been known to, in fact, put my professional-grade camera down and just bring a camera with me on a trip so that I can really enjoy the experience. I'm not sort of hampered by having these like very heavy pieces of equipment on my shoulders. And yet, when I want to, I can take a snapshot of something that interests me. So it's really it's allowed me to be able to truly enjoy my experience whenever I'm anywhere. But of course, if I want to be able to take that image and then blow it up, 5 times the size, I'm going to need a professional grade camera, generally. The only dangers I do see is sort of in a big brother watchdog sort of way. I think that virtually anyone can take a picture, but anyone can also doctor up an image. And so, I mean, we saw what happened with North Korea, in fact, when they doctored a missile launch, for instance, and it took a couple of days for the rest of the world to figure out that it was a fake. I think that there are definitely some dangers in having this proliferation of cameras pretty much anywhere and smartphones. But overall, I actually just recently read this book called The Circle, which was by Dave Eggers. So that comes to mind. And I think there's always an inherent danger with having everything photographed. But at the same time, it's sort of the cat's out of the bag and there's not much we can do about it. So I think that it's just generally realizing that there should still be some private spaces in our world and mostly public spaces. So I don't think there's too much of a danger. I think more so the benefits outweigh the negatives of having smartphones everywhere. We've been able to see a lot of things. Think of Saudi Arabia, women driving, and there's so many benefits that we've also witnessed. I don't mind at all, but I do that to people all the time, so I have to get very comfortable with it. I generally ask people, I try to see if they're okay with being photographed. The rule of thumb is, and the law is, in a public space, and if you're photographing from a public space, you can take a photo of anyone. You just ask as a courtesy. There are, of course, some places where it's not allowed, and I think in private spaces, I always make a point to ask if I can take a photo of somebody. I just think it's common courtesy to ask, but at the same time, I know that it's not illegal to take a photo, and I think it should be a basic human right to take photos of people and to document. I think that's a very good question. I think what should be asked, I'd like to reverse that question and say, should photojournalists be subject to the same ethics as mobile photographers? I think over the last few years, photojournalists in particular and professional photographers have sort of come under fire and been told that they have to buy licenses and get the okay to photograph in public spaces, such as like parks, and maybe, you know, they shoot engagement portraits, or they shoot baby portraits, or they're just trying to do documentary work, and they get told that they have to contact authorities before they can photograph in some of these public spaces. Like, for instance, in the Chicago CTA, Chicago Transit Authority, public trains, there are some questions that, you know, professional photographers can't take photos, and yet people with smartphones can. And so I think that photography should be readily available everywhere. I don't think, unless it's a private space, of course. But I really do believe that the fundamental right of being able to document and photograph should be allowed. I think you should follow the same principles that you do as a basic, maybe your basic photo 101 course, which is, you know, think of the rule of thirds, think of capturing great moments. Maybe if you wouldn't want to show it to your grandma, then you shouldn't really post it on social media. You also should think about your presence. Maybe it's okay to photograph and share with a few people, and I think that for that reason, that Instagram function with being able to share with just your friends and your followers is maybe a good idea. You should really consider, you know, what do you want to make public? What do you want to share? And how do you want to be portrayed to the world? Because when you think of it, that's, in essence, you know, how people see you, and your image is a reflection of that.